When Brezhnev was in power, he terminated all reforms in the Soviet Union, but at the same time, he did not allow all the younger brothers in Eastern Europe to carry out reforms. I will not make progress myself, and you will not make progress. For those Eastern European countries that are disobedient and insist on reform, when all kinds of intimidation and threats are still ineffective. Brezhnev will also mount the banner of Warsaw's joint armed forces. Call a few younger brothers. Just hit you. Force you to stop reforming. The most typical thing is Prague Spring in suppressing the Socialist Republic of Czechoslovakia. Starting from the Middle Ages, the Czech handicraft, mining, and metal smelting industries are very developed. The capital Prague is the economic center of Eastern Europe. Originally, they developed very well. Under the international situation of the Cold War in 1948, the Soviet Union instigated the February incident. Czech Republic was dragged into the Warsaw Pact and Economic Mutual Assistance Committee, a big plan economy with Stalin model. From then on, the Czech economy fell into difficulties. For the bad situation, Czech Republic wanted to reform. Early 1960s, the Czech Republic Central Committee carefully began to brew economic system reform. In 1968, the Central Plenary Session of the Czech Republic passed a reform program. The basic spirit of this program is to adhere to the path of socialism with its own characteristics in Czechoslovakia. A series of economic reform measures were issued. The promulgation of this action program marks the Czech Republic's entry into a reform phase known as the Prague Spring. May 1968, the masses in Prague held a festival parade, fully demonstrated the people's attitude towards reform. Everyone gathered, holding a sign that expresses their own opinions, express support for the party and the government. Of course, there are also criticisms. Everything is very free. The first secretary of the Czech Republic is Dubček. The parade he watched was filled with tears, because everyone in the Czech Republic is looking forward to reform. Can make the Czech Republic prosper and become stronger again. Can bring prosperity to the people. But the good brother of the Soviet Union has been observing the Czech Republic next to him. Look at him want to get rid of Stalin mode. Prague, the name of Czech socialism. What tricks can you do? Especially for Dubček, the first secretary of the CPPCC Central Committee. Pay special attention. Originally in Brezhnev's eyes, Comrade Dubček, a tried and tested proletarian revolutionary. His work and training were trained by the Soviet Union. Therefore, Dubček's coming to power was supported by Brezhnev. But after Dubček came to power, didn't follow the rules on the road, didn't report it directly to the big brother. The Central Plenary Session was held immediately, without the consent of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Reorganized the entire leadership team, replaced the army. Reforms are also needed. Take your own path. Can the Soviet Union bear this? This doesn't take good brother seriously. Soviet Union didn't think the Czech Republic is your Czech Republic. So from now on, military and the CPC Central Committee, Czech Communist Party Central Committee against Dubček, observation from support, turn to apply pressure. Finally decided. Let Dubček disappear. Brezhnev feels that our socialist family. How can it be threatened? He can't ignore it. Otherwise, how could he lead the team? So Brezhnev and the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union mobilize other Eastern European countries, put pressure on the Czech Republic together. So Dubček and other leaders of the Czech Republic. He was invited to Moscow to have a chat. In fact, he was arrested to listen to Brezhnev's precepts. Brezhnev put forward a lot of responsibilities to the Czech Republic in a fierce manner. Your party can't control the situation now. How can you allow the capitalist economy to develop freely? How can your army not obey the party's command? Dubček is not capable. Can't manage this country well. Dubček explained. Our Czech Communist Party. Not only has it been lost in leadership role in society, and it's more than ever. Can all win the support of various social groups and people of all ethnic groups. As for those mass media and newspapers, very free speech, but most of them support the party. Some criticisms. It's also a manifestation of our diversity and freedom. We are carrying out economic reforms in the Czech Republic. It is necessary to support better production efficiency. It will not lead to hostile anti-state situations. When Brezhnev heard this, he was questioning, what exactly do you want to do? In what direction should the Czech Republic be led? This meeting lasted for 9 hours. In the end, it ended up in an unhappy way. The negotiation is invalid. That big brother can only be tough. Soviet Union organized Warsaw member states. A military exercise was held in the Czech Republic. More than 16,000 well-equipped Soviet troops. They went to the Czech Republic for an exercise. And after the exercise, still not leaving. After repeated negotiations between the Czech Republic Central Committee, the Soviet army only retreated to the Sujiang border. And this army was invading the Czech Republic later. Very familiar. Although the Czech Republic has encountered obstacles and criticism from the Soviet Union, but Dubček and his CPPCC Central Committee still withstood the pressure, still follow their action plan, steadily advance economic reform. Brezhnev saw this, still remember some old feelings. He hoped to talk to Dubček again. After consultation, the two sides chose a small town on the border between the Czech Republic and the Soviet Union to hold a meeting. Dubček insists that our Czech Republic defends the party's action program. But we will not break with the Soviet Union. We will still stick to the socialist path. However, the goal of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union is to make the Communist Party of Czech Republic stop reforming immediately. During this talk, Brezhnev has always been arrogant. Speak like accusation and command. The talks were deadlocked and almost broke down. On the premise of adhering to reform. In fact, many concessions that a sovereign state can no longer give in. He promised the Soviet Union, Chairman of the Czech Republic and Secretary of the Czech Republic, that it's all changed, because these two are firm reformists. At the same time, the Czech Republic also promised not to exist in the Social Democratic Party. Restoring news inspection system. 1 week after this meeting, Brezhnev kept calling Dubček. Why don't you carry out those promises yet? Dubček's explanation of swallowing anger. Oh, such a major personnel change. Is it necessary to pass the central plenary session and the party congress? It's not about evacuation. This is not a kid's game. You see, it's so troubled. Don't think Brezhnev is just a verbal shot. Brezhnev was a soldier. So the political bureau of the CPC Central Committee formally decided to send troops to occupy the Czech Republic. Then the leaders of the Warsaw Imperial Kingdom were preparing to send troops with the Soviet Union. In other words, a group of little brothers from the Soviet Union flew to Moscow. Brezhnev made the final arrangement and explanation of the military operation to these younger brothers. Of course, his brothers expressed their wise support. The supreme decision of the CPC Central Committee must be implemented without reservation. Therefore, the political bureau of the CPC Central Committee appointed General Pavlovsky, Deputy Minister of the Ministry of National Defense and Commander-in-Chief of the Army, as the Commander-in-Chief of the invading Czech Army. The troops dispatched were 16 divisions of the Soviet Army, about 170,000. 10 divisions came from the Soviet Union, and 6 divisions were Soviet troops stationed in Democratic Germany. 3 regular Polish Army divisions, about 40,000. There are about 15,000 divisions in Democratic Germany. There are about 15,000 people in Hungary. There's also 5,000 divisions in Bulgaria. From a military perspective, this little bit of troops in Bulgaria is simply a big deal. To show your attitude. After all, this is a Warsaw Pact action. Just a little bit. At this time, military invasion is imminent. However, the Czech Republic Central Committee believes that the direct conflict between him and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, it has been eased. Nothing happened in the past few months. They are still busy preparing for the meeting soon. The 14th Czech Communist Party Congress. They never expected a military invasion to happen. Just at 2 p.m. on August 20th, the Presidium of the Czech Republic Central Committee held a Presidium meeting as planned. When discussing the preparations for the 14th National Congress of the Party Congress, the Prague Airport's podium received a request signal from 2 Soviet civilian passenger planes. Say they had a mechanical failure. Request a temporary landing. After the 2 aircraft landed safely, just docked on the apron in front of the airport building, walked off the plane. Dozens of people wearing uniform clothing. A strong man carrying a unified box. These people are very tall at the Czech airport. Maybe they were athletes. Don't care much, either. But at 11 o'clock in the evening, it was originally very quiet. These Soviets sitting in the airport waiting hall, suddenly from their own suitcases, removed the portable machine gun. It occupied all the key departments of the airport in a flash. It turns out that this group of passengers are commandos of the Soviet Special Forces. The two planes landed at the airport that claimed to have mechanical failure. It's the active radar station. 3 minutes later, the giant Soviet transport plane was loaded with tanks and soldiers. Under the command of the radar station, it successfully landed. The tank immediately rushed out of the transport aircraft's cabin, quickly occupied the entire airport. Then a Soviet transport plane landed every minute. Tank armored vehicle cannon. Fully armed soldiers and various military supplies poured out. People from the Soviet embassy also came in at this time. They are here to lead the way for the newly landed Soviet army. He immediately rushed to various key departments of the Czech Republic government of the Czech Republic. That is at 11 a.m. The Soviet Union, who has been waiting for an attack. Poland, Hungary, Democratic Germany, Bulgaria, Eka. The armed forces of these Chinese-American brothers flocked into the Czech Republic in several parts. These invaders were not subject to any resistance. The Presidium meeting of the Czech Republic Central Committee was held until 11 o'clock in the evening. Only the senior officials of the Czech Republic received the call. Know the news that my country was invaded. The Presidium of the Czech Republic Central Committee made a decision to give up armed resistance. Although this is weak, but this is indeed a realistic consideration. Because the reality is, there are only 4 tank divisions in the Czech Republic, 8 mechanized infantry divisions, a straight brigade. There are about 45,000 people, more than 500 aircraft, about 40,000 Air Force units. That's all. More importantly, there is no preparation for combat in the Czech Republic. Add your command system, communication and contact system, intelligence system. All have been controlled by the Soviet Union. Can't resist. How else to fight? If you really want to fight to be hard steel, then you're just as thoughts from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union hopes you can do it. The Soviet Union could have invaded Hungary like before. Come over and suppress the counter-revolutionary rebellion with justification. So, no resistance is the most rational choice in the Czech Republic. The Soviet army immediately occupied the central building of the Czech Republic. What about Dubček and other senior officials? Armed hijacking to Moscow and locked up. But the Czech Republic is, beginning with the invasion of the Soviet Union and several other countries. Almost all the people's spontaneous classes went onto the streets. Fence all the invading soldiers and tanks. Spit at them. Everyone shouts together. Some roars that made the Russians go back. The people also wiped out all the road rankings in Prague streets. The invading Soviet army could not find even the way. Military forces have no resistance. But the people across the country have been using this form to the outside world. It has never been in history when small countries in the world were invaded by big powers. This also made the invading Soviet army almost helpless. It's like an elephant keeps stepping on the embroidery needle and not being able to use it all. Pavlovsky's occupation authorities and Soviet ambassador to the Czech Republic repeatedly asked Moscow for advice. What to do next? Moscow faces the same problem. What to do now? After consideration, Brezhnev and the CPC Central Committee had to regard Dubček and others as prisoners from the Soviet army as guests of the Soviet Union. The two sides started a new talk. After the talks began, Brezhnev spoke a conversation in the lobby. This means we won't talk about the past. Don't argue about who is right and who is wrong. Let's discuss how to solve the situation that is happening now. Brezhnev's meaning is very clear. Let's not talk about my blatant military occupation of a sovereign state. Tell me how to solve the current dilemma. But Dubček insisted that the five-nation military action was taken before the plenary session of the Czech Communist Party Central Committee. All the mistakes must be in the Soviet Union. You have to take this responsibility. So the Soviet Central Committee really wanted to destroy Dubček immediately, then changed to the Czech party and government leadership team, but didn't find a candidate for this puppet. In the end, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union had to give up the plan to immediately make Dubček and others. But ask Dubček, you admit it. There are now activities to restore counter-revolution in the Czech Republic. Military intervention in the 5 countries is correct and legal. Brezhnev also spoke plainly. That is to say, we are just worried that you will see the Prague Spring. We are the ones who regard Czechoslovakia as part of the Soviet security zone. The Soviet Union could not give up on the Czech Republic. The Soviet Union did this because he worried that the Czech Republic would become independent. The Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union is intolerant of all this. Brezhnev was yelling in this meeting. Then he turned around and walked out of the venue. The CPC Central Committee not only threatens the Czech delegation with bayonets and threatened to massacre civilians in the Czech Republic, although Dubček and others fought to the death, but to protect innocent civilians in the country. In the end, they had to make a compromise. Midnight on August 26th, the two countries signed the communiqué of the Moscow talks. The early morning of August 27th, all members of the Czech delegation returned to Prague. Dubček and others finally survived the disaster. August 31st, September 1st, the Czech Republic Central Committee held a plenary meeting under the occupation of the Soviet Army. Those firm reformists were forced to be expelled from the party Central Committee. In mid-October, the Czech Republic was forced to sign a treaty with the Soviet Union. Regulations on the provision of all facilities to the Soviet garrison. Take all costs. After the agreement is signed, the Czech people have not stopped protesting either. January 8, 1969, a Bachelor of Philosophy student at Charlie University in Prague. In order to protest the Soviet occupation, he burned himself in public. It also shocked the entire Czech Republic. A new climax of protests against the Soviet army nationwide. Faced with such a situation, the Soviet Union also stepped up control. The Soviet Union put them in support of Husak. Election as the first secretary of the Czech Republic. Dubček was kicked out of the Czech Republic. By 1970, Husak, with the support of the CPC Central Committee, for secretary of the Czech Republic Central Committee were successively appointed. 9 first secretary of the Provincial Party Committee. 59 first secretary of the County Party Committee. Exited from the party. In December 1970, Husak held the plenary session of the CPPCC Central Committee, completely denying the reform of the Prague Spring. Fully accepted the view that the Soviet Union helped the Czech Republic defend the achievements of socialism. The entire Prague Spring was crushed by Soviet tanks. After the Czech reform began, many leaders of Eastern European countries actually wanted to follow up. They also want to learn to carry out reforms. Now, they don't dare to act rashly when I see the outcome of the Czech Republic. The Soviet Union occupied the Czech Republic and kidnapped the Czech party and government leaders. This brutal means of dealing with reform did shock Eastern European countries for a moment. In the next 10 years, Eastern European countries have indeed become honest and calmed down. But these are only temporary. Later, it was proved that the pace of freedom, democracy, and harmony was not something that violence could suppress. Although the Prague Spring failed, let the pace of reform and progress be unstoppable.